everyone. My name is Pragna Nidumolu and I'm the founder of EcoTeens, an initiative that helps raise awareness of climate change and how teens can come together across the globe to do their part in making this world a greener place for them and future generations to live in. As a part of EcoTeens, we launched a podcast called The Green Stories to bring diverse perspectives on sustainability and what we all can do as global citizens to address climate change. And today we have a very special guest in this episode, Karen Prante and Claudia Thompson-Deahl.
Oh, hi, I'm Karen Prante. I'm the owner of Asclepias Landscape Design, and it's a native plant landscape design business I started a couple years ago. And basically, for the most part, I design residential yards with native plants.
And I'm Claudia Thompson-Deahl, and I'm currently the Conservation Chair for the Prince William Wildflower Society, which is a local chapter of the Virginia Native Plant Society. And I'm a charter member of the Virginia Native Plant Society, and also I work part-time for Karen's business, designing with native plants.
So Karen, I know you are a specialist in native plants, so can you tell me a little bit about what native plants are?
Yeah, native plants are plants that are, they naturally grow locally in this area. And it includes everything from the trees, the flowers, the shrubs, and the ground covers. And it's really important to have native plants because it helps support our local ecosystem. It helps support the pollinators and the birds, the mammals. It's important to make everything healthy.
Definitely.
We've all heard the phrase, think globally and act locally. And so what we're doing is we're putting that into action, and we're encouraging homeowners and schools and businesses to incorporate native plants into their landscaping. We're recognizing the importance of providing habitat with native plants, and this would be habitat for insects, which in turn are going to be feeding our birds and our other wildlife. And so it's part of the whole food chain, and we're working on the ground level here to get that chain going.
So how did you get into native plants?
Okay, well, I've been into native plants probably over 15 years now. I've actually been a kind of gardener my whole life. I started with vegetable gardening with my dad, but I actually attended something at the Wildlife Conservancy in Loudoun County. Nicole Hamilton spoke about the plight of the monarch butterfly, and I understood, it was a light bulb moment. I understood the importance of the milkweed plant, and the only way that we would have a monarch butterfly is if we had milkweed plants, because that's the host plant for the caterpillar. And I happened to be in charge of, I was the garden parent at my daughter's elementary school, and I had the ability to build a meadow. So that season, after I learned that, I built a meadow. And since then, I've just been learning about native plants every year. I learn more and more plants, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's great.
And I got interested in nature when I was in elementary school, and I knew that passion was going to be my career. And so I worked for 38 years as an environmental resource manager, and then when I retired a year ago, I had met Karen, and she gave me an opportunity to continue working with her and sharing our love for native plants.
So Karen and Claudia, why is it important to plant native plants?
Well, like we already said, it helps support our ecosystem. A lot of the plants, I think like 90% of them, have a one-to-one relationship with a pollinator, where it needs a specific plant to support that particular pollinator. And then, of course, it does the whole web. But native plants also help keep water. Whenever you have, if you take plants out of, just say you clear the trees from your lawn, all the water will run off. And then any kind of chemicals or even the soil will erode and kind of, it's not good for our waterways. And the native plants have really deep roots, and it helps the water kind of stay on site instead of going into our waterways. And another thing with native plants is you don't need to use chemicals. You don't need to use pesticides or fertilizers because they're meant to grow in our native soils. And
Our turf is just acres and acres of sterile, it's a biological desert. It just doesn't provide habitat that our insects need to thrive. And so we are trying to work with converting our turf areas and into diverse habitats that will provide for nature. For example, a black-capped chickadee, just a tiny little bird, needs hundreds of caterpillars to feed its young. And so it will go to native trees and look and look and look for little caterpillars to bring back. And if it can't find enough caterpillars, they aren't going to have nesting success. And a lot of the trees that are not native don't provide the caterpillars that our wildlife will need. And so then that would be a downturn and a decline in our songbirds. And songbirds are in serious decline. And so this is another way that we can help wildlife by planting native plants.
it is important to also talk about invasive plants, because invasive plants, plants that aren't meant to be growing here, they're from other parts of the world, they're taking over the habitats, and there's not as much room for the native plants. For that very reason, we need that chickadee to have enough caterpillars, and if it's not the right plants to support it, then it just impacts everything in the ecosystem.
More and more nurseries are having a native plant section, and there are native plant nurseries, and it's important to seek them out and support native plant nurseries. And also, if you go to a conventional nursery, encourage them to provide native plants and tell them that you want to plant plants that are going to help nature and not become an invasive problem in the future.
So as an average citizen, what can we do about native plants, and how can we learn more about it?
Okay, well, the best thing you can do is if you have a yard, it'd be good to plant native plants. And you can get them, you can plant a tree. If you're not a gardener, you don't have time to garden, the best thing you could do is plant a tree. And it doesn't even have to be a big tree. And then you can go on to like a shrub. But if you have a little more time to garden, you can plant some perennials and some more flowers, and they'll be pretty. And other things you can do is maybe reduce, if you have a large lawn, reduce the size of the lawn. Keep the lawn that you want to play ball on, or, have a cookout on, but make the rest of it native plants to support wildlife. And as Claudia was mentioning, the leaves are very important. You want to leave the leaves because not only will the leaves turn into the mulch for the plants, because it has all the everything it needs once it breaks down, but there's also a lot of insects that they use the leaf litter to have their cocoons and whatever it's part of the life cycle. And when we get rid of the leaves, we're getting rid of all that free fertilizer, and we're also probably killing a lot of pollinators that are in there. So those are a few things. Is there other things, Claudia?
So people will say, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time was 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. So take the opportunity now to plant for the future. And there's people that like to clean up nature. They like everything to be neat and tidy, and so they'll remove all the natural leaf litter and put down sometimes store-bought mulch that may be treated with chemicals, when really what's best is to leave the natural leaf litter alone. The other day I saw this beautiful little butterfly called the red-banded hairstreak, just a gorgeous little butterfly, and I thought, I wonder what his host plant is. I could see what his nectar plant is, I could see what flower he was on, but I was wondering, I wonder what his host plant is. Well, come to find out, he likes leaf litter. That's where he hangs out. And so, when you're removing all the leaf litter, you're removing habitat. And there's people that like to pick up every stick in the forest. And sticks decompose to become, the natural fertilizer for plants. And so just leave the sticks there for nature, and a lot of little critters like to hang out underneath there. Patent leather beetles, little skinks, little baby turtles. There's all kinds of little critters that like to live there. So planting native plants is super important, but so is maintaining the habitat. for native plants. It goes hand in hand. I wanted to create a habitat by putting up a bird box. So I got out my hammer and my tools, hung up the bird box, bent down to put my tools down, and a bird flew over my back and into the bird box. I couldn't believe it. You know, so many times I see plant the habitat and they will come. We were just looking at a gorgeous cardinal flower that had a hummingbird coming to it. We have planted milkweeds and we've seen monarchs come to it. Karen and I were looking at a meadow earlier and we saw tiger swallowtails. We saw red spotted purple butterflies that came to the plants that we just put in a meadow a year ago. And it's just so rewarding and so refreshing to see it is so true. Whatever you plant, nature finds a way of finding it. And you can do your part.
What can we do on a daily basis that can affect climate change?
Well, related to native plants, I think one of the best things you could do is planting a tree, or 2 or 20 or 50, because trees are going to provide shade. It's a cooling effect, and when you have forests and trees, it also helps with the whole rain cycle. It's just very important to have more trees. We live in a fairly populated area where they're taking down trees for neighborhoods and shopping centers. And so what we can do in our own yards is replace some of those trees, because we know the population's getting bigger and we know we need to think differently and we all need a place to live. But we can help be the answer to that question with our own yards.
And the whole subject of climate change is so huge, and it's the little things, it's the cumulative effect that's going to make a difference. Things like when you leave a room, turning off lights, turning off water when you brush your teeth, and not being wasteful. Just so many little things that you can do. Can you walk rather than drive? Can you ride your bike? Can you carpool? What can you do to save energy? What can you do to use less resources?
Thank you so much for joining us today, and it was such a pleasure talking to you guys. See you in the next one.